What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plaisance Podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. In this episode, we are going to be previewing the Texas A&M Aggies football season. Let's first get into the stars, talk about a couple storylines, key losses, and additions to this team, and then our beloved record prediction. First, the stars. Connor Wegman on offense, the quarterback. He got some good experience last year, was not the permanent starter, but is going to be this year, and he's my Heisman dark horse contender. I think this guy has got a lot of potential, and he's going to show it on the field this year. As the leader of this offense, the guy at the helm, it's going to be his responsibility to get this offense moving. I don't know if the run game is going to be that successful, but especially in some shootouts, we're going to see Connor Wegman really light up the scoreboard. Now, on the defensive side of things, we've got Shamar Turner, a defensive tackle who fills some massive holes in Texas A&M's defense. I think he's going to be crucial in the run game. But then on the pass rush side of things, Nick Scourton or Scourton, whichever one. He is a defensive end transferring in. He had, I think, 9.5 sacks, maybe 10 sacks last year for Purdue. So he is going to put a massive emphasis on getting to the quarterback for this Texas A&M defense. Definitely a guy to look out for. Let's get into a couple storylines. Jimbo Fisher left this team an absolute disaster. Players transferring out every single year, 5-star, 4-star talent, just pieces everywhere. But Mike Elko has done a pretty good job of taking those pieces, putting them back together, rebuilding the ship, plugging the holes, and steering it in the right direction. And he's done it all in one offseason. In my opinion, this is a team that can contend for a college football playoff spot just because they have an easier schedule. And there's a couple games on here. If they win, they might go like 11-1 or 10-2. So Mike Elko has done a great job of keeping this team stable and pushing them in the right direction. That's definitely a storyline that you're going to hear throughout this upcoming season. He was a defensive coordinator at Texas A&M a few years ago. They bring him back in, and I think he's going to be a star coach for them. Now let's talk about some of the key losses and additions. The losses side of things, Texas A&M loses a ton. Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, one of the leading tacklers for this team last year. He gets drafted. Anaya Smith, leading receiver. He is a wide receiver that gets drafted in the NFL late, but still very important loss. Evan Stewart, another very capable 5-star talent wide receiver. He transfers and goes to Oregon. This Texas A&M offense was very disappointing last year, and I'm sure he wanted a new start in a new system with a team that he is not used to wearing the jersey of. So he transfers to Oregon. LT Overton, a defensive tackle, leaves massive holes to fill in this Texas A&M defense. He transfers to Alabama. And then another major loss on the defensive line. One of the best defensive linemen in all of college football, Walter Nolan, transfers to Ole Miss. So talent leaving for the draft, talent leaving for other SEC contenders. Those are not good signs of a offense or defense that Texas A&M can take over with Mike Elko and contend. But there are a few additions to this team that I think are worthy of note. One, Cassius Howell, an edge rusher from Bowling Green, 9.5 sacks last year. I think he'll be the second leading pass rusher behind Nick Scourton, one or the other. He comes from Purdue. He had 10 sacks last season. Both of these guys are going to be massive parts of the Texas A&M defense getting to the quarterback. I think that this edge-setting defense is going to work wonderfully. The defensive back unit, though, that's what I want to talk about as my second storyline / key additions. I'm not even going to get into trying to name all of them. I think there's 7 transfers coming into this Texas A&M defensive back unit. Luckily, Mike Elko has been a defensive back guy. He himself played safety at Penn. So he's going to have a massive role in making sure that this defensive back unit sees at least chemistry and then continuity going forward into the season. Like I said, 7 transfers, a few guys still staying on the roster. There's got to be some kind of stability here. And I think Mike Elko is going to be the main person responsible for that. Now, the expectations for this Texas A&M team, even though they lost a lot of talent, they're still pretty high. Aggies fans every single year want Texas A&M to be contending for a national title. And quite honestly, let's get into the record prediction. I think that they can do it. Now, I would want to call this a hinge game, but game 1 versus Notre Dame, it's massive. And it's there on Kyle Field in Texas A&M. Notre Dame comes on the road. I still think it's a loss. Mike Elko goes up against Riley Leonard, his old quarterback from his days at Duke last season. I think Notre Dame's got a ton of talent on the offensive line, as well as a strong and underrated defense. I think that Notre Dame comes in, gets the upset win. I don't think they'll be favored, but if they are, they get the win there. Texas A&M starts its season off 0-1. They host McNeese, get on the board with the W there. At Florida, while the Swamp is a hard place to play, I am a firm believer that the better quarterback usually wins the day. I think Connor Wegman will outduel Graham Mertz, win this football game, and get Texas A&M to 2-1. They come back, they host Bowling Green, Arkansas, and Missouri. Now, the Missouri game is interesting, but Bowling Green and Arkansas, Arkansas is a neutral site game. It'll be at AT&T Stadium. It's one of those old classic rivalries that I like to see from back in the Southwestern Conference. I think that's what it's called, the SWC, back in like the 80s. That's a game to look out for. That'll be interesting, but I think Texas A&M can blow out Arkansas. They'll definitely blow out Bowling Green, and Cassius Howell's actually going to get a chance to play his old team, which I think is pretty cool. So now what are we at? I think 4-1. Yeah, 4-1, hosting Missouri. That's an easy W in my opinion. I don't think Missouri is going to be that great of a road team. They don't have a ton of road games, I don't think. Actually, maybe I have this game as a loss. I'll have to go back and take a look at it, but Texas A&M, I'm going to give them, I guess, the loss here, just because I had Missouri winning it and going 11-1. So we'll chalk that up for a loss, and we'll move on to at Mississippi State. I think Texas A&M can win this game easily. Mississippi State, devoid of five-star talent. I've been corrected on that. They don't have a ton of talent, especially on offense. Texas A&M cannot compete. Then they host LSU. Kyle Field, very hard place to play, especially for a quarterback with not a lot of experience playing on the road. I think LSU takes the loss here. Texas A&M can secure the win. At South Carolina, that's an easier game. I think later in the year there will be talks about Shane Beamer not keeping his job. Coaching stability is one of the most important things to me when it comes to how successful a college football program can be. Texas A&M comes in, takes advantage of that, gets the win. Hosting New Mexico State, that's an easy W. Then at Auburn, while I think that Jordan-Hare is a dangerous place to play, this Auburn team is not yet ready to compete with the best contenders in SEC football. So Texas A&M gets the win there. And then the establishment of the old Texas A&M rivalry. I loved this game when I was growing up. I used to watch it on Thanksgiving every year. Texas A&M takes the loss here. I think Texas is a national title contending team. I'm not certain that Texas A&M is. I might have said earlier that I had Texas A&M going 10-2, but I'm switching that to 9-3. I think that's a good start for Mike Elko. I like that they've got the renewed rivalry versus Texas. They're going to get a rematch, or not a rematch, but a matchup of Riley Leonard versus Mike Elko. But honestly, it's a pretty cupcake road schedule. Texas A&M, if they can win either versus Notre Dame or Missouri, or maybe even both, they could contend for a college football playoff spot. But right now, I've got them going 9-3. I don't know if they can do that. That's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you tune into the next one. We're going to be talking about Texas and then wrapping up our SEC preview with Vanderbilt. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.